I think what you have to do is look at where your biggest holes are. And, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So you look at what your circumstances are and what you have to work with. Food is something that's actually fairly easy, whether you're living in an apartment and you have no outdoor space to grow, or you have lots of acreage. It's going to be different depending upon where you are. But it really does not cost very much to buy some sprouting seeds and throw them in your freezer, a few pounds of sprouting seeds, so that you always have live food, or some bags of rice and beans that will hold for a long period of time. So, there are definitely things that you can do. Also, you want to, so it's the food and then the water. There are easy catchment systems that you can make if you live in an area where you do get a lot of rain, like in Florida. There's a lot of rain there. In Arizona, there's not so much. But still, there are catchment systems that you can put up and let nature provide that for you, or go out and dig a pond. I mean, that's what I did. I dug ponds on my property. And you only have to go down like 3 feet, and you just put in a good a little filtration system. It's not very expensive. There's lots of how-tos on YouTube, and we're doing some things to help people learn how to do that. So I would basically say what you need to do is you need to write the mantra down and then say, okay, where do I feel the most pain? I mean, silver is not very expensive. You can start to accumulate a little bit and do it sooner than later. And keep in mind, I mean, I think this is critical that people don't necessarily think about, but gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base. So like when the coin dealers were having a hard time getting silver, well, guess what? Go to an antique shop. And I've even had the antique dealers comment on that. Go to like an antique mall, find out who deals in most of the silver there, and ask them if they'll sell you their scrap. The stuff that's broken and bent that they can't sell, they can't put out in the showcases, they'll probably let you have it at spot, because that's more than they would get if they took it to a smelter.
Right.
So the same thing with gold. I mean, knowing this, I accumulated a lot of that stuff over the years. Not so easy to find anymore, but I'd go to yard sales, estate sales, Salvation Army, so secondhand stores, all of that. And people don't realize what they have, and they just think that it's junk, or I don't want to polish it. So you have to look at where you are the most vulnerable and then start to plug those holes in. We are putting together, it's not quite done yet, but we are putting together like a minimum. So if you take the mantra, this is what you would need at a minimum level. So if you are really strapped for cash, okay, well, try to work toward this. If
Right.
you're more affluent, you can do that. And there are also a lot of properties. Well, I don't know, because we've had this massive real estate boom, but there are properties that you can buy and maybe they need more work. I was really, really lucky because, I managed to find this property, and I do need to put in a food source, but that's it. That's all I need to put in. So we've started plans to put in a hothouse to create food. And in the meantime, I'm doing my buckets of rice and legumes, and now I've got a complete protein. So we are putting together a minimum thing, but it's not, you don't have to have $1 million to protect your family. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about. That's what it's all about. Because when you are a debt slave, which is really what they want everybody to be, then you have to dance to their tune, whether you like it or not. You don't have any choice. So if everything you have remains in their system, then it's easy to control. And if those that are currently in power that helped get us into this extreme mess, income inequality, I don't care what they say. income and wealth inequality was built into the very system, the fiat system that they created, because inflation was built into it. And who suffers the most from that?
That's right.
So for them to talk about fighting it, the only reason why they're talking about fighting it is to avoid the revolution. Right. So I think that's more with the credit cards and giving people that really can't afford it. And it was interesting too, because they asked Jamie Dimon about the overdraft fees. And because, of course, all the banks came out and said what great jobs they were doing for those that were suffering from the COVID crisis. And he said, well, if they asked if they would reverse those fees, because it was some enormous amount of money, something like, don't hold me to this because I don't really remember the exact number, but something like $2.4 billion worth of overdraft fees that Chase collected in 2020.
Yeah.
Right. And when asked if they would reverse those fees and give all those people back those money, or extend them in loans, or do something to help the community, there was his one word answer: no. When you see things going parabolic, it's because they're panicking, and the system that they created and all the convolutions are no longer working. Yeah, and they're starting to fall apart. And that's really been true. Well, it's been true for a long time, but very, very true since September 2019.
Right.
They did not fix that. They haven't fixed anything. They haven't changed behavior. They've maybe moved it off balance sheet, or they've moved it obviously outside of the banking system, because 2008, it was a lot of stuff that was, and all of the bad loans that were held in the banking system. And so that created the problem. But what they did is they moved it into shadow banks, and which do a lot of the same things as banks, but they don't have the deposits that the banks have. They don't take in the deposits, but the banks loan to the hedge funds and the shadow banks that risk has transferred to, and it's more opaque. That's what they've been talking about. The Fed has been talking about how, like Archegos, that whole, we have not seen the end of the derivative eruption there yet. We haven't seen the end of it. Just because they're not talking about it anymore doesn't mean that it's fixed. It's more about us thinking or not thinking about it. It's that short-termism that they've been pushing us for. But I still believe, without a doubt, that it will be the derivatives that end up creating a crisis that will send us into the reset.